Hey guys, I'm Peter, and in today's video I'll show you two techniques called comparative measurements and blocking method. Have you ever wondered how professionals get their proportions so perfect in their drawing? Well, in this video we're breaking down the principles behind these techniques. They are some of the best and most widely used methods to help you quickly and accurately lay down the basic structure of any subject. Okay, so what's this all about? It's a method of comparing proportions of parts of your subject using simple principles. Essentially, it's similar to side-size method I explained in previous video, but instead of focusing one-on-one scale, we are just transferring proportional relationships from the source to the paper. We'll start by framing the subject, marking the top, bottom, left and right boundaries of where the object ends. This creates the basics of the envelope. If you're unfamiliar with the envelope concept, I covered it in this video, so be sure to check it out too. Now, how do we figure out the proportions between height and width? There are a couple of ways. First, using a pencil to measure. Similar to side-size method, you can use your pencil to check proportions between the horizontal and the vertical dimensions. Second, using the unit of measurement. Pick a reference feature like the height of the head and compare everything else to it. This helps you to estimate the overall proportions more accurately. We'll start with the action line. This is essentially the central line that defines the overall flow of the pose. For this figure, the action line flows from the top of the head, through the torso, down to the right thigh, and ends near the knee. It creates a virtual C shape, giving us the access of the figure's position and dynamics. Next, we'll focus on connecting the forms. I'll start by sketching the head as a large oval and extend the line down to the pit of the neck. It's critical for building the 3D structure of the torso. From there, I'll sketch the shoulder line, running in from the back of the deltoid, across the trapezius, and to the left shoulder. I'll use a diagonal line to define the boundary of the shoulder and the pectoral muscle. Then I'll add the curve for the abdomen and indicating the torso boundary down to the knee. The shoulder muscle is represented as a basic oval, and I'll connect it with a dynamic line that flows through the serratus anterior and abdominal muscles, nearly reaching the thighs. One common mistake beginners make is placing these foundational lines incorrectly. It's a natural error you can fix with a comparative measurement. For example, how do you know if your abdominal curve is in the right spot? You can use the height of your head as a reference and measure how many times it fits along the line. It may feel tricky at first, but with the practice you will develop the ability to eyeball these proportions accurately. Now I'll sketch the axis of the left thigh and the lower leg. At the base of that, I'll create the basic form that serves as a groundwork for structural anatomy. I also blocked the right arm axis and the envelope of the fingers. For now, I'm leaving the drapery on the left side alone. What we see here is just a basic visual concept, a few strategically placed lines from the skeleton of the drawn figure without any details. It's important to note that while Riley method is powerful for observational drawing, it's not as effective for drawing from imagination. From construction anatomy from imagination, I'd recommend the George Birdman's method instead. If you're interested in Birdman's approach, drop the comment below and I can make video for that too. At this stage, the gesture drawing should be almost complete. And I can move on to step 2, construction. During the construction phase, I refine the gesture drawing with the basic geometric shapes to define the form, structure and volume. Here I'll outline outer edges of the body and limbs and start lightly indicating the muscle groups. This lays the groundwork of the anatomy, which we'll dive into during the final detailing stage. Once we've sketched the basic framing, we'll start to observing the key alignments. Does the nose line up with the ear? Is the shoulder aligned with the top of the head? Are the fingers in the line with the knee? You can even use a plumb line to double check these alignments, similar to how the Photoshop's guidelines work. Over time you'll develop an intuitive sense for this, and you won't even need the plumb line, you can just use your pencil or eyeball it. While it may sound complicated, the concept is simple. For practice, we'll use the Riley method. When drawing, it's important to recognize that the body has natural flow, and no matter how complex or dynamic the pose is, it creates an abstract gesture. This step is loose and expressive, focusing on on the overall energy rather than details. The goal is to establish a solid foundation or skeleton for your drawing that has clear rhythm. These bold sweeping lines will help connect the internal forms, which will refine into basic geometric shapes. The process is broken down into three main steps. First, gesture. The goal here is to capture the movement and rhythm of the figure. Second, construction. Add basic shapes to define volume and perspective. Third, detailing. Finally, add anatomy details, muscles and textures. The best advice here is to draw and draw some more. This will sharpen your sense of structure over time. The challenge when drawing from live or photos is that there is no 100% foolproof method to guarantee that every line is perfectly placed. You have to rely on your artistic intuition to understand the relationships between structures and use them to build the skeleton of your subject. If you want a perfect accuracy, use a projector to trace the subject onto your paper or canvas, but that's not what we are about here. I'm teaching you the foundations of academic drawing and theoretical principles of observation. In the construction phase, I focus on simplifying the forms of muscles into basic geometric shapes like cylinders, circles, or squares. This helps me break the complexity down and keeps the structure clean. At this stage, I also start adding some finer details like eyes, nose, or even the hairline to define the main features and prepare the drawing for shading. Using soft light lines, I map out where the light and shadows will fall. This gives the drawing a sense of depth, but I'm still keeping it loose because I want to make sure the proportions of structure are correct before I commit to do anything. For example, I roughly indicate muscles like the serratus anterior and sketch in folds or tension in the skin to double check my measurements. Once I'm happy with the overall structure, I move on to the detailing phase. Here I usually start with the face. It can be tricky because the details sometimes get lost, so I focus on how light shapes the features and where shadows naturally form. This approach helps me build a solid foundation for the face without getting overwhelmed by tiny details too early. I also refine the silhouette, making those straight lines from earlier more rounded to better reflect the anatomical form. When I start working on smaller parts like fingers, I get closer to wrapping up this face. Here's a cool trick I use to check proportions. Negative space. That's the area around the object that isn't part of drawing itself. By analyzing these abstract shapes, I can make sure the surrounding forms are accurate without overthinking what I think should be there. It's a simple but powerful way to stay objective. As one of the final steps in this phase, I use blending stamp to lightly suggest the cast shadows. I keep it super subtle at this point, so I can step back and evaluate whether everything looks proportional. This pseudo shading helps me see how the drawing connects to the reference and gives me a better sense of the overall form. So these are the fundamental parts of detailing phase. I'd like to add that during the initial phase, when we are building the gesture, we use straight lines to define proportions rather than curves like we do in the detailed phase. That's because straights provide better control over proportions than curves. In this phase, it's also important to step back frequently to avoid what's known as tunnel vision. This occurs when you stare at one part of the drawing for too long, causing you to focus on a single detail and potentially lose proportions accuracy compared to your reference. After stepping back, it's crucial to compare negative shapes as well as positive ones. Another useful trick is to use a mirror to view your drawing in reverse. It helps spot mistakes that may not be obvious otherwise. The final step is refining the details and focusing on the line quality. There are specific rules for this, which I'll cover in a separate video, but here's a quick rundown. Lines in the light areas tend to be softer, thinner, and sharper, while lines in the shadowed areas are usually darker and thicker. This method helps finalize the figure, and after a final check, I should have a solid structure ready for shading. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. In the next video, I'll show you fundamental shading techniques for realistic drawing, and if you're interested in similar approach, the side size method, where you draw your subject at 1:1 scale, may be perfect for you. So be sure to check out that video, along with many others on my channel that can help you on your journey to becoming a skilled artist. That's all for today. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. My name's Peter, and I'll see you in the next one.